This video is sponsored by Squarespace. I am a bit scared of airbrushes. I own a few of them, but when push comes to shove, I don't find myself reaching for an airbrush first. If I need to prime something, if the weather's good enough, I'll use a rattle can and then generally use a brush instead. All the airbrush kit that I do have just kind of sits gathering dust, and I'd like that to change.
So what puts me off airbrushing and makes me scared of it? I think it's the perceived amount of effort. You've got all the additional kit, the upkeep of it, cleaning. It's like a piece of machinery that you need to learn how everything works. And then maybe the learning curve is a bit steeper as well. You either have to get specific paints or you're thinning down your regular paints to try and get them through the airbrush. I just think it's all, I don't know, a little bit off-putting, a bit more complicated. When Gallery sent us through their latest offering, which is the 0.2mm Mobius airbrush, I wanted to shake off that fear and start using an airbrush to paint some miniatures. A breakdown of the brush is all built around this 0.2mm needle, perfect for super detailed work or airbrushing small things. I've only ever used a 0.4mm needle before. It's got a dual action trigger, which seems quite standard at this point. Same with setting a stop on the trigger so you can't pull it back too far. This does have something that I've never seen before, however, and that is an additional dial to reduce the tension required to pull the trigger back. You can either have it light or firm. I prefer it firm, so left it at that. It's also got an adjustable valve under the barrel, so you can set your compressor and then fine-tune the amount of air going through on the brush. It's a cool feature, but I'm not a huge fan of the ergonomics. Take Squidmar's signature brush, released a couple of years ago. This also has this same feature, but it's built in to the connection, and in my opinion it's implemented in a bit of a better way. The Gallery, because of this additional valve, is difficult to put down. The knob gets in the way, so it doesn't really sit particularly well in holders and grips and stuff like that. This isn't an issue on the Harder and Steenbeck because it's put on a different part of the brush, almost like it's not there. The first ever airbrush I got was one of Squidmar's releases a couple of years ago through Harder and Steenbeck. I got that bundled with a compressor, and I've just had that set to 25 psi the entire time that I've owned it. And that's because every time I watch a Cult of Paint video, Henry says he has his set to 25 psi, generally. So I've just left it at that.
Oh, you just caught me building myself a new website with Squarespace. We all know what Squarespace is now, don't we? But just in case you don't, Squarespace is an all-in-one website platform to help you stand out online. Whether you're just starting out or already established, Squarespace gives you the tools to build a beautiful and engaging website, helps you communicate with your audience and sell anything you can think of, all in one place. Building a website with Squarespace is dead easy. With Fluid Engine, the next generation website design system from Squarespace, it's never been easier for anyone to unlock unbreakable creativity. Start with a best-in-class website template and customize every design detail with reimagined drag and drop technology for desktop or mobile, so you can create on the go. Get started with one of Squarespace's professional website templates with designs for every category or use. Then customize your look, update content, and add features to fit your unique needs. You can make any Squarespace template do what you want, so your idea, brand, or business stands out online. If you want to sell anything, Squarespace has got you covered. Sell your products on an online store, whether you sell physical, digital, or a service, Squarespace has the tools you need to start selling online. So check out squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, head to squarespace.com/thepaintingphase to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
I'm choosing to paint a grim, dark yellow marine, Imperial Fist, etc. As I've done similar schemes before when I was painting a charity army. That was achieved with Rattlecan Zenithals, but I'm looking to improve and tweak the scheme with an airbrush. First up, I'm priming, and I really like using the AK Dual Exo paints as they're essentially coloured primers. They're designed to go through an airbrush. I still like to thin them down, and I'm just going in and using a pink primer. The process that I've kind of picked up at this stage with all of these additional bottles that I have on the table is a couple of drops of flow improver, put your paint in, bit of thinner in, cover the end of your airbrush and blow air back through the airbrush to help mix all the paint together. Is that super important? Unsure, saves getting a brush and mixing it in the cup, I guess. That's the way that I've been shown how to do it in the past. I'm sure you have some other ways as well. Priming went on okay, a few stoppages, but I just unscrewed the cap and cleaned the needle. I might not have thinned the paint enough, and I think this is one of the issues. I don't know exactly where I'm going wrong when things are going wrong. And then when it all really started to fall apart was going into the next stages. Adding on the white, I've seen various whites used for zenithal priming with an airbrush, and I wanted to try white ink. I went with one of the new AK white inks and got started. It seemed to be going on okay, but I started getting a few more blockages and stoppages. Enough that I just kept the cap of the airbrush screwed off to clean the needle when it inevitably stopped. Frustratingly, sometimes I'd blast a load of air through and then it would start working again, and I'd end up with some blobs and spidering going on over the miniature, kind of making the paint job not look particularly good. It was very annoying. Regardless, I cracked on and turned to the yellow ink for the armor. Previously, I've used Imperial Fist contrast paints and got some great results, but I wanted to try this. Using it neat, much to my dismay, totally my own fault for not testing it, it was far more opaque than I realised and just covered up all of my previous work on the first miniature. You can't see any of the highlights or the shadows. It's just like I've covered it in yellow paint. Nice one. So trying to learn from this blunder on a second miniature, I then diluted the ink and I started to get the results I was after, but I think I diluted it too much and the ink just started to run out of control on the miniature, and it was a right pain. Really wasn't happy with how these were looking.
Overall, for the hours of time that I've spent on this, this is kind of why I'm scared of airbrushing. But I'm going to build up a couple more, and I'm going to compare this to another new airbrush that I bought recently. I think that's probably the best thing to do. I've done this sort of thing with rattle cans before and it's worked really well. I thought the inks would be more transparent. My own fault for not testing them, as I've said, but currently that's quite a few hours gone just for me to say, if you do have this yellow ink from AK, dilute it, don't do it 50-50, because it runs everywhere. Yeah, difficult. Steep learning curve. I'm not really selling airbrushing, probably go and watch someone else. All the features on this currently working really well. I'd like a bigger cup, but realistically I just need to put less paint in it, because I have at times, especially when I was using this diluted ink, sort of gone to the side a little bit, spilt it, it finds its way to the front, and I've just blasted the miniature with crap. So struggling at the moment. Deflated. Yeah, I'm gonna stick a movie on in the background and build some more Terminators, I think.
So I built 2 more Terminators and repeated the process. I also started using another airbrush, and this is Harder and Steenbeck's Squidmar Ultra that's just come out, because I wanted to see if any of the issues I was experiencing were specific to this airbrush. It turns out they weren't, and I was still getting some of the issues with the inks when I was using them. So I swapped out the white ink for the Liquitex variety, and straight into the airbrush, I experienced better results. It was going through the airbrush a lot smoother. AK inks are a new product. I don't know if there was something that I should have been doing, but this is what I found. When I got to the yellow, I used Imperial Fist contrast paint instead. It's a known quantity to me, and I'm in a rush. I hadn't planned on building and painting 4 of these, and I was super happy with the results. I've got that airbrushed armor look that I really wanted to achieve. This feeling didn't last long, however, as I gloss varnished the miniatures to put on some decals. I don't think I left the varnish to dry long enough, and when I put the decals on, it seemed to reactivate, but all the way through down to the plastic. So now I've got 4 Marines and none of them are usable. I'm still scared of airbrushing.
So this is Paint Blitzer, and today, in an attempt to learn new painting techniques and bits and bobs, has interesting to say the least. These are going to have a soak overnight. Yeah, it's 8 o'clock on a Saturday. Everything I've done today has completely failed. The airbrushing's been fun. I feel like I've learned that as much as I wanted to love the AK inks, I've struggled with them. And then, yeah, putting microsol on the stuff just kind of like melted through everything. So, never mind. These guys are gonna get all clean. Tomorrow is another day. I'm gonna go and cry into a microwave meal for one. Okay, so I've just got in. It's Sunday morning, feeling a bit chirpier today. I've just arrived to all of the mess that I left on the table. I think I've got some Marines to get out of a Paint Blitzer bath.
Mini stripped, lessons learnt from yesterday, and it's time to paint. I'm going back to my first airbrush that I ever bought, as it's the one that I've used the most. Taking all my learnings from my disastrous day before, I got way better results on this one. Back to where I was, I've got my cool looking armor that I absolutely wouldn't have gotten if I'd done this with a traditional brush. I want to paint 1 mini to completion, and I'm actually kind of a bit scared. Again, I've got this cool armor that took me literal days to get to, and I know that I'm going to make mistakes with a brush. And just because I've put so much effort in, I'm really paranoid about messing it up. But let's crack on. Blacking out took a while, and I hit the yellow a bunch. It actually turned out to not be the end of the world, as I just took a pink paint, painted over the black splodges with that pink, and then when that was dry, just got some Imperial Fist contrast by hand, just going over, and it turns into that orange sort of toned look. Generally, I'd splodged with the black on the harder to reach areas, so they're going to be sort of shadowy anyway, so it all kind of worked out. Still got those results that I wanted. I've used Streaking Grime a bunch, and I'm using it as a wash here essentially, so that came out next. I didn't varnish the miniature because reasons, you remember. Simple base with some Lunar Desert and some liquid pigments, and we're done. Taking it off, I made sure to use enamel thinner and not white spirits, and none of the previous layers seem to be affected by taking that Streaking Grime off. I did some dark brown chipping with Daz Latham's brush sleeve method. And then went in with some sort of chipped highlights, bit of silver here and there on the gun, really all quite straightforward. So I'm leaving it there. Am I still scared of airbrushing? Yeah, absolutely. But I'm happy with the miniature. I've got the yellow to orange fade that I was after. I know I can't do that with a brush and have it look the same. Annoyingly, I think the back of the miniature is the best with that fade looking super swish. Some more highlights required, maybe more volumes. It's a bit dark, maybe a bit too orange. Who knows? It's all been a learning experience. Am I still scared of airbrushing? Yes, but maybe slightly less so. Some paints work better than others. It's remarkably easy to mess things up, but I think this has demonstrated that, you know, you can't be good at everything straight away. You really do just have to put the time in. I mentioned earlier Cult of Paint, and there was something that Henry said in one of his Black Templar videos when he wasn't overly happy with the results, and that was, if I want it to look better, I've just got to put the time in. And there's no use me looking at airbrush miniatures and thinking, oh, I wish I could do that, trying it for the first time, it not working, and then being like, oh, well, I can't do that. Got to put the time in. And over the course of a couple of days, I think I've made a lot of improvements. So I think I've set out to achieve what I wanted to. I've got my airbrush power armor. I've got some nice transitions from like a mid-tone down to a shadow. And yeah, quite happy. This video, I didn't originally plan to be as messy as it has been. I wanted to play with this cool new airbrush that we'd been very kindly sent and recommend it if I thought it was good. And I guess the truth of it is I can't recommend it, but just because I'm not qualified or good enough to do so. I don't know the ins and outs of what makes the greatest airbrushes in the world, so you absolutely shouldn't trust what I say. Over the past 2 days, I've got more of an idea of the paints that I like to use and the processes and this, that, and the other. I think I'm slowly getting an idea of the features that I like on different airbrushes and things like that. And yeah, it's all just a bit of a learning experience. So thank you for watching. What a roller coaster it's been, for me anyway. Now that I'm at the end of it, I'm quite happy with the results of my my cool little dude. Definitely things that I'd do differently if I was to do it again. I think more experimentation, and you know, you're never going to stop learning, are you? But anyway, thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. Thanks to all our patrons for all the support, and see you in the next one.